Hey quilters, this is Sarah from Snugglebug Stitching, and today I have a tutorial for you on quilting the spirals with tails. So this particular quilt we are looking at is my Joyful Flowers pattern. This is a free pattern that I wrote for Benartex. Benartex is super generous. They offer free patterns on all their new fabric lines. This particular fabric line is so pretty. This is Follow Your Joy by Kelly Ray Roberts. I'm just going to kind of let you look a little bit at the quilt. So it's going to alternate between this chain block and then this kind of star flower block. And I do have a tutorial on how to make these petals of the block because it may be a technique that's unfamiliar to you. So I will link to that tutorial in the description. But for today, we're going to be doing our tutorial on quilting the spirals with tails. So just a disclaimer, get it out of the way at the beginning. Sometimes I'll say swirls and sometimes I'll say spirals, but I mean the same thing. So for the backing, got this basted with this really pretty mint green fabric. And for my thread, I'm going to use this really pretty pink shiny fabric. This is the polyester quilting thread from Missouri Star Quilt Company. So the 40 weight polyester quilting thread in this particular color is rose pink. And I think it goes really good with the nice, soft, pretty look of the front of the quilt. The background is peach, but there are plenty of pinks in here, so pink makes sense. And also, I feel like that this pink sort of shows up a little bit better against the backing for my quilting. So I tend to wind a bunch of bobbins. So I'm going to wind up a bunch of bobbins, and then we'll get on to our tutorial. Okay, so we are ready to start quilting. Just a few little prep things. I have my free motion quilting foot attached. This is just standard closed toe hopper foot. That's what I prefer to use. There are lots of different kinds of feet you can get for free motion quilting, so just use whichever one you like the best. I've got a new needle. I like the Janome purple tip needles for quilting. I've got my machiner's gloves that I'm going to put on in a second. These have got rubber fingertips so that you can grip that quilt easier without having to push down really hard. These are one of those things that you may think you're doing fine without them, but once you get used to using them, you'll realize how much easier it really makes it. I've got a whole bunch of bobbins wound and ready to go. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top. So I'm just gonna put the needle down and pull that thread up to the top. And then I'm gonna try to put my needle back down really close to that point where that bobbin thread is coming out. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but pretty close. It's gonna help you a lot. And you'll wanna put your foot down. And I like to take a few stitches in place just so that when I start quilting, this thread doesn't get pulled through and knot up on me. So I'm going to hold this thread in place here and take a few stitches. All right, and whether or not you want to have your feed dogs down is up to you. I have had good success with both. So whatever works best for you. I will say that if you are struggling with your tension with your feed dogs down, try it with leaving them up. It was kind of a game changer for me when I first started doing free motion quilting. I've had some sewing machines that did better with them up, some that did better with them down, and some that really didn't care one way or another. This particular machine, my M7, I do drop the feed dogs, not because I think it makes any difference. It really doesn't make any difference in the stitches or the quilting. They look good either way. It's just a little quieter with the feed dogs down. So do whatever you want to do on that. And we go ahead and put my machiner's gloves on and let's get started doing some quilting. So this particular design, spirals with tails, has a lot of places in it where you have a good opportunity to adjust your hands if you need to. And I always bring my centers of my spirals to a point And that's a great place to stop and adjust your hands if you need to, especially if you are newer to free motion quilting. You may feel like you need to stop a lot and readjust your hands. I actually don't do that very much anymore, but it is a great stopping point for if you are newer, or if you just like to stop and readjust your hands. It is a lot easier to stop and restart smoothly on a point than it is if you were trying to stop and restart smoothly on a curve. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make either a heart shape or a feather. So half of a heart, a feather, backwards question mark, however you want to think about it. And just FYI, this is how I do this. This is what helps me. But if you have another way of doing this, that's fine. Do it however you want to. It's supposed to be fun, so do whatever works best for you and gives you less frustration. And for these particular swirls or spirals, I do not really care so much about making them all a uniform size. And that's not a bad look. It's a good look. It's just not really my style. I like the idea of just wiggling around and filling up the space and having all of them look a little bit different. One advantage to that is that if you have all your swirls that are almost exactly the same size and then some kind of mistake happens or something happens where you can't make one the same size, then that was going to show up a lot more. Whereas if they're all different, that's not something you have to worry about. So let's start off with that half a heart or backwards question, feather, however you want to think about it. All right, now we've stopped in the center. Now we're going to echo around that shape we just made, and we're going to echo it from the inside. And we're going to come back down here to where we started the shape in the first place. All right, so we've got that little shape started. And I'm going to kind of zoom in here for you a little bit so you can see that maybe a little bit better. All right, so we got that little shape started. And now I want to come around here and then start another swirl with the tail over here. So I'm just going to echo around here and then come around and start that shape again. And since I'm starting on that point, it's not going to be hard for me to restart smoothly. So I'm coming right here close to this little part, the little round part of the design. And I'm going to stop on sort of a point there and then come all the way around here and swirl out over here. All right, bringing that to a point. Now I'm going to, again, echo around on the inside of that shape. And this time I'm going to come back around here. Okay, so now that I'm back around here, I can either start another little question mark, or I can follow this shape right here a little bit and make another swirl. Or if I didn't want to stop, I could have kept going and did the swirl right here. So this is not something that has to be perfectly planned out. You can kind of gauge based on where you want to go next. So I'm going to just start another shape here, and I'm just going to move this thread out of the way for now. I do have another free motion quilting video. We talk more about specifically free motion quilting, where I show you how to bury the thread. This one is just about this specific design, so we're just really going over this design. So I'm going to start echoing here and make another sort of part of a question mark. So bringing that to a point, you can stop there to readjust your hands or readjust your quilt placement if you need to. And then we're going to echo on the inside. All right, so now we need to decide where we're going to go next. And I'm going to bring this one over here. So I'm going to echo around this shape and bring it over here. And I'm just going to echo around it and go straight into that swirl. Okay, so let's just say that I decided I wanted this little spiral, this little swirl right here to be a little bit bigger. So something I can do is I can actually take this outside of the circle here and bring that back around, echo that back around to make it look a little bit bigger. And in the whole scheme of your quilt, you're going to have a hard time differentiating between spirals that you echoed around again to make it look bigger and the regular ones. So it'll look fine in your whole quilt. And the more quilting you do, the less noticeable it is when there's something a little bit different. So here, now I want to get back to this part right here. So I'm going to kind of stop this little tail right here and then come up here and echo around that. And I'll stop here and then make another swirl to kind of fill that space. So right here, I'm going to come around the inside of that shape and I'm going to echo that around all the way back to right here. Now, if you are newer to free motion quilting, that may be a little too long for you to go. So once I get back here, I'll show you the ways you can do that, still have a pretty design without having to go as far without the opportunity to adjust your hands. Do this, the more you'll find your own rhythm and the more you'll find what is the easiest way to do this for you. So that one had a really long tail coming all the way around here. And so I went pretty far before I had the opportunity to readjust my hands. And I don't readjust my hands that much when I'm just quilting this quilt. But until you get to the point where you can do that, it may be easier for you to stick with shorter little tails. So we're going to make a short little tail right here. And then we're going to just kind of keep with short tails. We're not going to echo around as far. Okay, so we brought that swirl center to a point so that we have a place to readjust our hands if we want to. And again, we're going to echo on the inside and we're going to just come back right here. So there we have another place to readjust our hands if we need to. And we've got a short little swirl. And if we want to get over here to this side without having to go far without readjusting our hands, we can come and echo right here and bring that to a point. And now we don't have as far to go before we get right here, and we can bring that one to a point. So see, we're still having pretty swirls, but we're not having to go as far without stopping to readjust your hands. So there's a good stopping point, and I'm just going to echo this around to up here. Okay, and I think I want to do some quilting right in this area, so I'm just going to echo around and get back over there. And anytime you need to adjust your hands, you can kind of come into these little spaces in between these two spirals and then start a new shape. So, and this kind of sounds like, hearing me explain this, it sort of sounds like I really put a whole lot of thought into this. But when I'm actually quilting, I don't. I just kind of go with the flow. If I decide that I want to go somewhere else, I just echo my way over there. If I see a space that I need to fill, I can always come in farther in between these two circles and fill space that way. So you're really just wiggling around and filling up the space. So now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and let you see how this looks, how I would normally do this and kind of how that flows, and just kind of let you see how that looks when I'm normally quilting. All right, so now here's just a little look of kind of how that whole quilting flows. So you see, I don't stop to readjust my hands very often, but if you do need to stop and readjust your hands, bringing those centers of your swirls to a point gives you an extra place to stop. These places where we echoed around and stopped give you a place to stop and readjust your hands. So you have plenty of places to stop and readjust your hands. And I like to quilt about a quarter of the quilt and then kind of flip it around and do another side. So when you want to flip it around, you can leave your needle down and take your presser foot up and then just flip it around however you need to so that you can start quilting again. So once you get that adjusted, you just take the presser foot back down, and since you kept your needle in place, you won't have to worry about anything having shifted. So you can just start quilting again. And notice I'm just kind of wiggling around and filling up the space, and I hope this helps.